Hola, soy Mónica Conesa y estás mirando Eclectic Arts Media.
We'd get our scripts and it would only say our lines in the script. It was very hush hush.
I will take the worst days in porn over the best days in finance, and I'm with my heart.
We're not everybody's cup of tea, and that's fine because I don't drink tea anyway. I'm a coffee drinker, so it's like whatever.
I think I forgot your question, but I went on a different path, but it felt great.
Aloha, I'm Jake Shimobukuro, and you're watching Eclectic Arts Media.
Opportunity these people had, and then they just ruined it.
Hi guys, I'm Jillian Summers, and you are watching Eclectic Arts Media.
That's not true. People tell me no all the time. I just don't believe them.
Hey, I'm Jennifer Page, and you're watching Eclectic Arts Media.
Then when I'm doing the preparation for Shoresy, I just try to remind myself, this is fun. Make sure you're having fun. You don't have to destroy people in every scene.
If you got on my YouTube algorithm, man, it's all just life coaches and philosophy.
I always get off the phone.
Good evening, good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are in the world. I'm Mark Sugiyama from Eclectic Arts Media, based here in Seattle, Washington. And thank you so much for joining me on this Sunday over here, the 6th of April, 2025. And my apologies for anyone that was kind of wondering what happened at 6 p.m. on the West Coast here in the United States. I had the time wrong, obviously. So through my own fault, I had to recreate things. But my guest is here waiting backstage, so we will proceed as planned. Before we do so, I want to thank Tiffany Time for talking with me this past, I think that was on Wednesday, if I remember right. And she was great. What I didn't know was that was her very first interview ever, and she was a great guest. We talked for at least an hour or so. So I'd love to have her back. And speaking of which, coming up this Wednesday, the 9th of April, noon Pacific, I have session 5 of the Conversations with Kate series that we've been doing. I will let you know that this is going to be our last episode for just kind of the foreseeable future. Once we kind of have things to promote, or if there's been a length of time that's passed, then we're probably going to get together. We will talk about this live on Wednesday about what the future holds. But that's going to be at noon again, Pacific on Wednesday. And then Friday, the 11th of April at 8:30 p.m. Pacific, so that's a late one. I have Nicole Bouffard scheduled to come back, and I haven't talked with Nicole in over, it's been maybe a year and a half. A lot has changed. She's with her solo work as Hazel. She's with 2D Cat as the vocalist and a musician with that. She also joined the band Alice, which brought me to this virtual world nearly 5 years ago. So she joined Alice, I think it was roughly about a year ago. So we're going to catch up on everything. Nicole's always been an amazing guest, so I'm looking forward to getting all this stuff straightened out, and also what she has coming up, because I'm sure there's probably like a laundry list of things. If this is your first time joining me on my YouTube channel, if you could do me a huge favor, please hit the subscribe button as well as the notification bell. And if you're over on the Twitch side of things, if you could follow me over there. If you would like to know specifically what I have coming up, live streams or in-person events, as I have quite a few things coming up in April, you can follow me as Eclectic Arts Media, one word, on Instagram. That's where I post everything first, and then some of that information migrates over to other social media platforms. And if you're really wanting to support what I do, there's a PayPal me and a Venmo link in every YouTube live description that I do. And that's only if you're in a position to do so. I want to thank Joshua for making the first few donations this year, which was really great. He came to me through a particular guest from a different recurring series, and then he started watching some of the other live streams that I have. If you're watching this right now or listening to this and you want to ask my guests a question at any time, please join the YouTube channel or the Twitch channel, and you can put your questions into the comments, and I will ask those to my guests as we have time. Please be aware that they do not see the questions. So anything that you're saying, if it's just like an offhanded remark about, I love you, well, they don't see that. I see that. So I guess that's kind of nice if you mean that for me, but usually it's for the guest. All right. My guest today first joined me in January of 2024. She has since released her debut album and played many shows overseas in the UK and Europe, as well as her home in Australia. She has a new album coming out along with a new tour. Please welcome back to the Eclectic Arts Media virtual studio, Miss Cassidy Paris.
Hello, how are you going? Thank you so much for having me back on.
I'm doing great, Cassidy. How are you?
Doing really well. Doing really well.
Yeah, thank you so much for taking the time. I was trying to get you back earlier, like at the end of last year, which was really ridiculous because I had a lot of issues for myself, so December wasn't going to work. And then I know we touched base in January, so if we could do it like at the end of March or so, that would be a perfect time to promote what's coming up. So here we are.
We are here. Yeah. Thank you so much for having me back on. It was so much fun last time.
Yeah, I had a really good time talking with you and Tom, and I remember we started getting into like all the '80s bands, and that's totally my background. So it's hard to get me to stop talking when it comes to that kind of thing. But let's kind of start with where things are now, because I know you just played a show in Australia, but you have a big tour coming up overseas. So what can you tell everybody about that?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we have the Bittersweet tour coming up. It's this month, which is pretty crazy to say because we've been working behind the scenes on the Bittersweet tour, which it feels like forever, but we actually came back from the UK, our Midnight Desire tour in, I believe it was like August, September of last year. So it hasn't been that long since we've been back to the UK. But we were just getting so much love over there. And, you know, we're bringing out a new album, of which I can't say the name of yet. But yeah, we're bringing out a new album. We wanted to play some new material. And then obviously we had a really big opportunity for us as well in Europe. We're actually supporting Harem Scarum, which is one of my favorite bands. Like I grew up on Harem Scarum, so did the boys, so did my dad. So that was like a really cool opportunity, and everything kind of just like came together. We're doing, I think it is like something like 8 or 9 European dates with Harem Scarum, and then we're doing a run of like 12 or 13 in the UK and Ireland. So it's been a really, really busy start to the year. We have recorded and finished all the mixing and the mastering and producing for the album as well. So everything is like ready to go. And yeah, we're super stoked. We're very excited.
Yeah, no, that sounds like you got like a whole lot going on. I mean, because you've got, like you said, you've got a support spot, you've got headlining spots, you've got festival dates, I know too, as well over. So, and like you said, you just all the recording stuff's in the can. It looked like you were working on maybe a video the other day.
Yeah, we were actually, it's so funny because we're doing a bit of a different thing this time. We're doing 4 singles for the album release, which is, you know, just to get as much music out there as we possibly can. And that's something that, you know, the record label really liked the idea of as well. So we've got 4 music videos in the can this time. I just got back from a music video shoot late last night. So we did a music video shoot then, and then we had one a couple of weeks ago as well. And we take off for the UK on Sunday week. So a lot going on, but busy is good.
Yeah, no, and it sounds like you have everything, like all your ducks in a row. So like this whole year is probably just going to be like one thing after another, really. Once the album officially comes out, and then each single video comes out, and you're doing more shows. And I think if I remember right, when we first talked, you were talking about you know, the upcoming tour that you had overseas, and I was looking at some of the footage just on YouTube of what, you know, fan footage kind of stuff, and my mind's kind of all over the place. But what I noticed with a lot of the music was that it sounded, especially from, I think it was, most of the shows were a 4-piece. So there's one show that showed like there was like a 5-piece, like another guitarist joined you at some point. But that was in Australia, I think.
Yeah. Well, we had a 5-piece going at one point, but the guitarist in my dad's band was helping me out for a long time, and he's a legend. His name's Dave. And when we kind of like solidified the lineup with Tom and Alex and my dad, obviously my dad was previously on lead guitar, and we did a swap. So Tom was on bass, my dad was on guitar. So now my dad's on bass and Tom's on guitar, and Alex is still over on drums. And once we had kind of like solidified the lineup, then everything kind of just fell into place. It felt like really good in terms of energy and, you know, chemistry on stage. And been with the boys now and my dad for probably coming up to 2 years. So it's been a great ride with them, and they're very much committed, and that's what we were kind of looking for in members and permanent members.
It's such a hard thing to find, and definitely when you find it, then I think anyone who's ever been in a band gets really happy when things are working and working well, because
yeah, exactly. No, it's so difficult, and like especially and Tom and I speak about this quite a bit, but especially at my age, like I just turned 22 not long ago, and Tom's 23, his brother's 25. Like we're all like reasonably young, and my dad, it's funny because my dad has obviously experienced that, but there's always people that are coming in and out of bands, and like obviously different life things that you have to deal with as well. But no, I'm really, really happy in the band, and I know the boys really happy. So it's going great. We have some fantastic things planned for the remainder of the year, touring wise, and we've actually solidified an American date as well for next year.
Oh, exciting.
Yeah.
Gonna...
yeah. So it's probably like one of my bucket list things. I'm not allowed to talk about it yet, but so I'm really, really stoked about that one. America is somewhere that I've been before with the band, but it was just like an acoustic kind of thing. So it's probably like it's our electric debut really in America. So we're excited about that one, and to announce that soon.
Okay, and I'm obviously not going to press you about this American date, but just in general, is it a festival date or like a regular solo date?
Yeah, it's a festival date. It's a pretty like notable festival as well, where we're pretty stoked about it. We got an email whilst we were on tour last year, and it's something that I've kind of been manifesting for a while, and I've been really wanting to kind of get on. And when the email came through, I just remember looking at Tom and I was like, "Is this real? Like, I don't understand. Can you read this again?" And it's something that even my dad has, like, it's a bucket list thing for all of us, and yeah, we can't wait to announce that one.
Cool. Well, I mean, I follow you on social media, so I'm sure I'll see it as soon as the time is right.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I know what's interesting is that I just saw a band that was in February that's from Adelaide.
Right.
And it was, for the most part, I think all of their first time in America playing shows. So, and these guys are like basically my age or a little younger. And so it was interesting talking to them after the show, but they're just like little kids. They were so excited to be in New York, be in Boston, be in Seattle.
That's sweet.
Yeah. And again, these are people that have been doing music for 20 plus years, but they just never got into a band situation where they could tour America. And they finally got the opportunity. And my understanding is they're coming back this summer, so they're even more excited. Like,
right. What band is this?
The Hindley Street Country Club. They do a bunch of cover songs that are really popular on YouTube. But yeah, they're worth checking out. They do a lot of stuff from like the 70s and 80s. So again, that's right up my alley. But yeah, it's just so I can't believe I'm here. And then they start talking about just like how a fan would, the one singer, they have like different singers in that band. And when they're in New York, they played the Palladium where Kiss debuted Eric Carr back in the day. And he was like, that's all you could think about. I'm playing the same stage where Eric Carr debuted in 1980 and all this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was really cool to talk to those guys. And they sounded fantastic. So there's a free plug for those guys. I'll definitely see them when I come back to Seattle. But so I imagine it'd be the exact same thing for you and the guys in the band, that when you finally play that festival in America, is like, here's the start. We're finally here. We're finally doing this. And then hopefully it'll turn into other, great things and other opportunities in the US.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, like we've been waiting for the right opportunity, and there's been a couple of things that have come up in the US, and then even like after we booked this show, and it just seemed right in terms of like making our debut over there, and it's just a really, really cool thing to kind of be doing, and I can't wait to announce it. It'll probably come out over like the next month, so I'm watching socials, and like I said, it's a festival date, so I'm just keeping my eyes peeled and keeping my emails very close to me at the moment to make sure I don't miss when it goes out. But yeah, so it should be a really fun one.
Yeah, and one of the benefits of making your electric debut at a festival is that one, you're going to be playing in front of people that can be turned into new Cassidy Paris fans because they may not be aware of who you are. But then also the band connections and the people connected to those bands, managers, assistants, all that, they're all there at the same spot. So it's a great place to network.
Yeah, no, it is totally. And yeah, that I'm just, it's something that like I've watched this festival since I was like a little kid, and it's something that, you know, like I said, it was bucket list. And same with the dates we've got coming up as well. Like I remember you know, all what we've been working for the last like 5 years prior to being signed was to get signed by a record label. And then when the Frontiers thing came about, it was also when we were on tour, believe it or not. So I'm seeing a little bit of a trend here when we're on tour. So hopefully that carries through to the next tour as well. But yeah, when we've been on tour, there's been some cool things that have arisen from it. And Frontiers have been great working with us in terms of, you know, the branding and making sure that everything's in place. And we're having a great time. We've worked really hard on this album with everyone on the Frontiers team. And yeah, we're excited.
Well, that's a great segue and I know we can't talk about like the title or anything else related to the new album, but
yeah.
What part of like, say, the songwriting process were you heavily involved yourself, or were you kind of involved in certain songs, or what kind of things can you talk about right now?
All of us were. And this was different from the first album because majority of the stuff on the first album was like, you know, heavily me. But there's a lot of songs that I co-wrote. There are some Steve writes, my dad, some Tom and Alex writes on there. There's some from, you know, I co-wrote with Steve Brown from Trickster, which was a cool thing for me to do as well because I grew up listening to Trickster. I co-wrote with Paul Lane again on a couple. Like there's a bunch of songs on there. And you know, we worked with, in Australia there's a band called Roxas, and they had like one of the, you know, top 5 singles back in like the early 90s, I think. I don't know if you know the song Where Are You Now, but it was like literally a staple in my household. Like that song, we loved that band growing up. And he had a huge hand in the second album as well. I recorded all my vocals with him. There are some things that like I brought into the studio and I was like, this is my idea, like where can we go from here? And he was so good at like coaching me and, you know, and helping me. He was like, oh, maybe we should do this with that. And it was just a really like cool bounce back situation. And I hadn't really co-written with anyone else like that before prior to this album, except for Paul Lane. And, you know, Paul constantly, you know, reminded me, he was like, you know, make sure you're co-writing with people because that's the best way to be a sponge in the industry is like, and to learn. I want you to make sure you're co-writing with like whoever you can. So he was really cool about it too. But yeah, there's a lot of people that had a lot to do with this album. I had a very clear direction, and so did the guys in the band with what we wanted for the album, and we're really happy with the outcome. You know, I'm really excited to see what people think. And we played a Melbourne show, a headline Bon Voyage show last week, and the songs just went off. People were saying it was better than the first album, and you know, that's a massive like compliment. You know, when you've put out a debut record and people like it, there's this sort of I mean, it's a good kind of pressure, but it's also, you know, still pressure to kind of deliver something that competes with the first album.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and they talk about you know, the sophomore slump, that is something successful right out of the gate. Then the second one, plus you don't have as much time because you may have been working on those first songs for like 5-10 years even, and then they're done. So now you got this smaller window. Like, okay, what's next for album number 2?
Yeah, exactly. And, you know, a lot of those songs on the first record, I was like very particular about, like, you know, things like Stand, things like Walking on Fire. And obviously there were some things that people had never heard from like our core fan base, but Frontiers were great because they put us out to a much wider audience. So a lot of people hadn't heard things like Danger, but I was like, it needs to be on the record because it's like a very pivotal part of our journey. And, you know, I'm not going to stand here and say, you know, we did this overnight, because we didn't. You know, we've worked very hard and, you know, refined things and gone back and re-recorded things. You know, a lot of those songs, like you said, I recorded Talk About It when I was like 14, and then I recorded Stand when I was 15. And then when you go back and listen to it, you can tell, obviously, because, you know, there's like 3 or 4 years of growth there before we put out the first record. So I was particular about what I wanted on the first album. And I think that's something that probably confused people too, is that, you know, some of the songs had been released previously, but it hadn't been released on that scale. And a lot of people hadn't heard the songs off that record. And even we're finding that now with Europe as well, going over to Europe, like the first show on the tour has almost sold out. And a lot of people were like, I hadn't heard New Sensation at all. And we were like, you know, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, and then like you said too, that I follow many bands that some of them are real particular about when they put out certain versions of songs, and other ones are like they put every little version out because they're like an independent DIY kind of band. So they might have 10 versions, and you can kind of hear what it sounded like 10 years ago, and then what it sounds like now is like, damn, that's almost like 2 different songs. And that's also kind of cool from a fan's point of view to kind of see the growth and the changes through the songwriting process. But I also understand, like, if you're putting your brand out there, that sometimes you don't want all this other earlier stuff out there. You're just like, well, this is what we're doing now, so hopefully you like it.
Yeah, well, and that was the thing with the secondary album, you know, the sophomore record. It's a bunch of new stuff, you know, and you know, the entire album is new, so it's things that people have never heard before. And it was something that, you know, I was really confident in, like, you know, a lot of the Paul and I writes on the first record. But when you go into a situation, and this is something I learned as a musician on this record in particular, when you go into a situation that's new to you, you know, there is a little bit of like, how is this going to work? Is the co-writing situation different? Do we, you know, do we write over Skype? Do we write over Zoom? Do we write in person, or wait to write in person when people are touring? And you know, or go back and forth from emails and stuff. Like, that's how I wrote with Steve Brown. Like, it was very different situation, and it was so cool, you know. Like, I was so chuffed that he was available and made himself available. He's a very busy man. Made himself available to, you know, kind of you know, they're mentors, all of these people. I'm really excited for the second album, because all of these people said, you know, I want to be, you know, a part of trying to, you know, help you get somewhere in this industry. And they understand, you know, the idea that we're kind of the new generation of rock, and they want to play a part in that. So it's really cool to see who's involved.
Yeah, I was going to say, Trickster was just here in Seattle like 2 weeks ago. So
yeah.
Yeah,
I love Trickster. You know, like, Tattoos and Misery is one of my favorite songs of all time. So I knew it was a long shot. Like, I reached out to Steve Brown and I was like, look, we're doing a second album, and I really love, you know, your songwriting. And I wrote with him and another songwriter that he works closely with as well. And it was just fantastic. It was such a cool experience. He was so on board. He is such a, you know, a breath of fresh air in terms of like his energy. He's just so like passionate about what he does. And I've been really lucky because or the band's been really lucky, because we've been able to co-write with so many like passionate musicians. Every single one brings something different to the table.
Well, I mean, I would hope that anyone now and in the future that you co-write with, collaborate with, anybody in the band as well, that you find people that are passionate, because it's like, why spend time with those that aren't?
Well, exactly. Yeah. And it's a huge thing. It was a huge, you know, thing in terms of like making sure the lineup was correct too. Like, you know, we were particular with what we kind of wanted for the image of the band, and we wanted people that were fully on board, because, you know, this is very much our job. And we're very lucky to say that too. But you know, Tom and Alex and my dad have been so involved in, you know, the making of the second album, and I can't thank them enough, because it was something that, all of us were like a little bit like, a little bit stressed. There's a little bit of stress involved with making a sophomore record, like I said, but we were so passionate going in there, and I just couldn't have done that without them.
Yeah, I'm flashbacking to like an interview or a quote from Steve Harris from Iron Maiden, and this is back in the early days, like in the late '70s, before they finally got their first stable lineup. And he was talking about like one of the guitar players didn't show up to rehearsal, and he was like, "What's going on here?" So he drove over to the guy's apartment, and he was there with his girlfriend. He's like, "Look, what's going on? Are you in this band or are you not in this band?" And the guy didn't really have an answer. He said, like, "In front of your girlfriend, tell me right now, are you in this band or you're not?" And the guy didn't say anything. So he said, "You're out." And he was like, "How do you put up with people like that? I mean, you don't have the same goal."
Exactly. And that's the thing. It's very difficult, when you've got such a passion for something. This whole music thing is my life. I love it so much. It's like my child. It's like, I put everything into it, and I'm so lucky to work with musicians that put everything into it as well. So it's been great.
Well, again, I've talked to and been privileged enough to interview so many different people from not just music, but to other walks of life. And definitely the common thread is that your passion has to be 100% in whatever you're doing. And yes, you're going to have, obstacles. And yes, you're going to have some things that don't quite go your way at times, but that passion is what's going to get you through those. And the people that don't have it, they fall by the wayside. They don't last that long, especially for musicians that have to tour.
Yeah, and touring is it's not for the weak. It's full on your body. It's full on mentally. Like you're especially at this level, and this is something like I haven't really talked about online, but at this level when you're just kind of like rising, touring, it requires everything of you, and you don't have a lot of people on your team doing a lot because to be blunt about it, you can't afford to bring everyone on tour. There's not someone there to carry all the equipment and a roadie for every single piece of equipment, testing it for sound check. There's we have, and it's great. Like, I'm so excited to say this, but for the first time on the last tour, and my dad said, he goes, "I've never done this before." We were able to break even on the tour, which was insane. Like, when you're outlaying that much for merch, and you have to pay so many different fees, like tour bus fees, and this is on the upcoming tour. We've never been on a tour bus prior to that, but the van, and when we're doing things like that, it's all finances, and you have to put the work in. Everyone's working, and sometimes you're getting back from the gig, you're going there at 9 a.m, traveling all day, you're getting there for sound check, eating dinner, going on stage, and then you get back to the hotel by like 2-3 a.m. It's insane. And then you have to get up and do it all over again. So it is taxing. It's incredible. Like, I would not trade that job for anything. It's fantastic. So much fun.
Yeah, and you described it to a T. Again, I know so many bands and from on different levels of the success spectrum or whatever you want to call it. And yeah, the folks that think it's all jet planes and four-season hotels, and you have an entourage. It's like, that's not where you're at, and most people are quite honestly not there. They're lifting their own gear. They're having to go to the merch table. They're having to do all these things. And like you talked about too, which a lot of people forget about, is that sometimes your call time, you may have only gotten 2 hours of sleep, and now you got to get back in the van and drive to the next city because you got to get there in time. It's going to take you 9 hours or whatever.
Exactly.
And sometimes you don't have a driver. It switches between the band members. They have to do the driving. So that's another taxing aspect on you. So it definitely, if you're like just like a dreamer about what touring life is like, you'll get a shock to the system real quick. Just going on
And you know what? I think that's something that, like, previous band members in the band have learnt as well, that it's not, you know, everything that you see, you know, it's very much not like Spinal Tap, you know, they don't, you know, there's aspects of Spinal Tap that you do apply, you know, like, you know, checking harmonies and everything, but there's aspects of it that I'm like, you're not getting on a tour bus, you don't get, you know, every single time as a support act. Sometimes, you know, you're lucky if you get water. It's a you know, a funny kind of industry to be at this level. We've been really lucky, like on our last headline tour we were so well looked after by the people at venues, and you know, we've been really lucky, particularly this time as well, because on the European leg of the tour, we're actually traveling in a tour bus with Harum Scarum. So it's going to be, you know, a lot of fun to do something like that. But majority of the time when you're doing this a headline tour at this level, it's not all that, you know, you're not sleeping on a tour bus, you're sleeping at, you know, wherever you can, you're getting out of the van and you're going to like a, you know, a motel. That's what you're doing.
Yeah, no, and again, you said it from experience, and I've heard it from other other bands, and I'm thinking of a band that's from Louisiana that came to Seattle a few years ago, and I know them pretty well, and they're like, Mark, we don't have any place to sleep. I mean, can we sleep there in your apartment? Or I'm like, if you want to sleep on the floor, that's fine. I don't have another bedroom for you, but I totally get it. They've got, you know, stinky clothes. They haven't had a chance to shower yet. And it's just like, but they're so passionate about that. We'll put up with all this nonsense because we want to be on stage playing music and building our fan base. And this is what it takes. That's what it takes.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, like we still do some, you know, the aspect that we get to, or the fact that we even get to sleep in hotels is like, that's still luxury. Some bands are, you know, sleeping in the van and stuff. It's still, you know, that we're able to do that is good.
Yeah, I was thinking about even like for what I do, that I kind of half joke about when I first started doing all this media stuff, like, oh gosh, it's been over 10 years now, that when I would send out emails trying to get like interviews and things like that, I wasn't hearing anything. I was just like nothing. And then when I first got my first no back, I was like, that's actually a step up. I actually got a no. I actually got something sent back to me.
Yeah.
And then you try to turn the no into a yes, but it's just like, yeah, same thing. Like a lot of bands that they can maybe stay at someone's house. Maybe they can afford a motel once a week, depending on where their money is at. So yeah, there's definitely sleeping in their vans and their sprinters and their, you know, whatever else. And again, trying to find showers. They know where truck stops are, because then they can try to use a shower at the truck stop. They have gym membership, so they can go to like a Planet Fitness and take a shower. They know all the tricks, all the little tricks. And it's like, damn, it was eye-opening to learn about this. And it's from several bands too. It wasn't just like one, it's like a bunch of them. So hats off to any band that gets out there and tours and brings their music live, because that, to me, especially for rock, that's where it's at. I mean, you have to play shows. You can't be doing stuff in the studio forever. You got to get out there.
Totally. And you know, that's something that, you know, with what I was talking about before, like every single tour there seems to be like something that pops up that's really exciting for us, you know. Like on the first tour it was the Frontiers thing, on the second one, you know, it was, and this is a UK headline tour, like it was a UK headline tour for the second one, and then obviously like this American thing that we're going to be doing so on the third one. So you know, it's exciting, and it shows you though the power of actually getting out there to the people. Every single time we play shows, you know, there's some sort of benefit and some sort of, you know, cool thing that is attached to it. And I love playing live. Like, I just love connecting with people, and I see so many musicians that are like, oh, I've got to play a show, like, you know, my body's sore, and I'm like, my body's sore, but I'm still getting up there, you know, like I would, and it would take, you know, I always go out to the crowd afterwards. I don't care what level we're at. Like, it's, you always make time for people that made time for you. You know, they took time out of their day. They put their money into that ticket link and bought the ticket, and they came out after they finished their hard work, you know, during the day to come out and see you. So, you know, if you can get out to people and say thank you and shake their hand and meet them and talk to them about the music, then that's, you know, that's what we can do to give back.
Well, that's a refreshing perspective. It's also a really good business perspective because I tell young bands, especially when they come through like my neck of the woods, if they're not already doing, most of them are, but some of them aren't. So you're planting seeds every tour, every show you play. So if you disappear after the show and you don't come out to the merch booth, or some of you don't come out to the merch booth or whatever, you're really hurting yourself. But if you do, people feel like they have a personal connection to you. And then the next time you come, they're going to maybe bring some friends with them. Oh, I saw them a year ago. They were so great. I talked to Cassidy about this, and this. And that's how things just naturally grow. But yeah, I think most bands do. But every now and then I'll see some that they just disappear. You don't know where they went.
No, that happens. I see that a lot more often than you would expect. And, they disappear right after the show and they're out of there. And I'm like, do you want to say hi to the people that paid money to see you? But that's just my perspective. It's very much how I and the boys were brought up, and that's something my dad always taught me. He was like, being a good person is not hard to do, and you respect those people because they respect you, and they respected you enough to use their hard-earned money to come see you play. So you make sure that they know that. So that's something that I will always live by. And obviously there's your occasion where like we're very much like we would never charge fans and stuff to take photos or do signings and stuff like that. Obviously there's your occasional one where you're at a festival and that's what they demand of the bands, and we respect that because that's their festival and that's their their rules. But even after that, like I'll always go out in the crowd and speak to people and sign things, whatever they want, and talk to people and take photos. Like it's just, for me, it's a respect thing to people that are allowing our brand to build.
Well, again, I'm sure all the fans and the new fans that are waiting appreciate that type of, I know I do, just strictly as a fan, when I have an opportunity to just say even 15 seconds of something to someone, that's always a little plus. I think where things get interesting just in general is that there's also a bit of entitlement from the fans too, that you're entitled to a great show on that stage. That's the first and really only thing you're entitled to. So if Cassie's nice enough to come out and she talks about a respect thing, then you need to be respectful of her in terms of how they interact with you. And also just don't be a dick.
And that's true as well. Like I've been I feel like I've lived a very sheltered life in terms of that. Like I've been and I mean that's also what comes with touring with such good musicians that look after you. And to put it quite honestly, being a female in this industry, you could encounter that a little bit more, and that's just the nature of the industry, the music industry that we're in, like at the moment. And I've been lucky because majority, and for the most part, I've never seen anything that has been like weird. Like the DMs are wild, but in terms of the like people coming to shows and speaking to me after the shows, they're really respectful. I take photos, I hug people, like and that's evidently how you get sick sometimes as well, but it's something that I'm willing to trade off, because people are just so lovely, and they have been so touch wood, obviously they have been so accommodating and helpful. And I'll speak to people about anything after the show. Like I find it so fun.
Well, again, that's really cool of you to do that. And also just kind of, I've talked to a gal that was at a like a pop culture kind of convention, and it was her first one, and she was told by other people, other guests, saying, "Oh, well, just do this, this, and this. Don't shake hands, don't do that because you don't want to interact that much with the fans." And she's like, "But that's not me. That's not how I am as a person. So if I want to hug somebody, I'm going to hug them." And she's been doing conventions for like 20 years now, so that's exactly what she's like.
I know, and that's the thing. Like it's and you will get people that talk to you like that as well. I remember we played at a festival last year, and it was a big festival. It was about 10,000 people cap festival or something like that. And we went to the Planet Rock signing desk, and I will never forget this. They were like, and I'm a chatterbox. Like I'll sit there and speak to people for ages, which probably makes fans feel a little bit like, oh, are they gonna? Is she actually gonna, sign my stuff? I'm waiting in line for the last 5 minutes, but I respect people, and they respect me, obviously, and it comes back to that thing as well, but. I remember signing things and they were like, Cassidy, we love you and we love that you respect everyone and, your fans, we know that they're your life, but also you need to move through your your signing stuff. And there's like this, I will never forget, and it just blew my mind. It was probably like one of the first times we'd ever seen this, and this is when we really saw a shift starting to happen with our music. Is after we came off the show, we were like, oh, there's this massive line there, and they were like, that's for you. And I was like, what? Like, what do you mean that? Like, I didn't comprehend it. I was like, I could not comprehend how that line was so huge. Like, there was people lining up from the stage all the way to the merch like stand, and like young kids waiting with like Cassidy Paris t-shirts and posters. And I was like, this is insane. And if there's a young kid there, I'm totally gonna say, you keep at playing guitar, or you make sure you keep smashing those drums and don't let like anyone else tell you otherwise. So yeah. I try to get some speaking in where I can.
Thanks for sharing that story, and it does remind me of some of the people that I know that if I know them and maybe I can meet them like right after their set before they go out to meet the rest of the fans. I'll start gabbing myself, and then Mark, I'd love to talk with you, but I got to get out there and still talk to everybody else. Like, oh yeah, I get it. And sometimes I'm good about it, and sometimes I'm not.
Yeah. No, that's understandable.
Yeah, and especially, and now if I'm in a line of fans to meet somebody at a signing table or something, I definitely don't take up too much time, just because I know there's a bunch of other fans that want to get through here too in a small amount of time. So I try to be reasonable. Some people aren't like that. Some fans, they're just kind of like, well, I have my moment, so I'm going to talk as long as I can. I was like, well, I'm not one of those people.
Yeah, I know. That's also true. Yeah, true.
So I think it's, from both sides, the artist side and the fan side, that you just try to find the happy medium that kind of works for everybody to show that you can accommodate as many people as you can.
Exactly. And you know what? Those people that work, behind the scenes, like even at the Planet Rock workers in the UK, their jobs are like the hardest jobs ever because, they're trying to move along not only fans, but they're also trying to move along the musicians because, I'll write like a little blurb and they're like, you just need to sign the poster. And I was like, I know, but it's a little kid. And I wish someone did that for me when I was younger.
Yeah, no, I get it. I've definitely I've seen those kind of situations where the poor staff that are there, they're trying to maintain order with the fans, because some people get kind of upset about things, and then the artist is trying to take extra time with the fans, which is really nice, but it's like, you know what, we've got 20 minutes and then we got the next one that's got to come in, so come on, politely hurry along.
Exactly.
But that's a nice problem to have, that you have so many people that are there that want to meet you and want to get an autograph or a picture or something, or just say how great a set it was.
Absolutely.
It goes back to that whole Spinal Tap thing about when they were doing that in-store appearance in that movie, and they're like, is anybody going to show up? And then one person showed up or whatever. Kind of like, oh god, is that what's going to happen to me?
We luckily enough, it was so successful, the last tour, and I know we probably haven't spoken since then, but the Midnight Desire tour was it was a huge kind of stepping stone for us because a lot of the venues were packed, and we've only been to the UK a handful of times, obviously, and we've only previously done support slots with bands that are probably at a similar level to us as well, but we it's a whole new world over there. And we were like, you know what, we'll try this headline thing. And we were all a little bit apprehensive about it because there was 17 dates on that tour. And that's a lot of dates to do over the UK. It's also, when you do so many dates in a country, you spread your fan base massively. So we were a little bit apprehensive, and we were like, okay, we can try it and see how it goes. And it was super successful. Like, I remember we did the first show, it sold out, which was like crazy because we had only been to the UK a handful of times, like I said. And I remember, like, I think it was something crazy, like 70% of our merch or something was gone after the first show. So we were like, we're probably going to need to order some more merch. And we ended up doing that like 4 times over, which was just absolutely insane. We were so rapt that people were loving the album and that people wanted to spend time with us, on their, Friday, Saturday, Sunday nights. And it was just great. And this is why, we've had all these fantastic opportunities arise, and the second album as well. So we can't wait to play some new material for everyone.
Yeah, see, I mean, you said it better than I ever could, that tour was so successful that it's going to give you more opportunities, that, more fans will come out. You're just building off of a foundation. And it also tells you that it's kind of, it's reaffirming for you guys as a band, I would think, of like, we're doing things the right way. We're doing things that we want to do, and people are responding to it positively. So now we're just going to watch the UK and the European audience grow. And then with this first, festival appearance in America, then people are like, who is that gal that played on the stage at, 4 p.m. or whatever it is? And then it starts spreading from there. Obviously, with things like YouTube and social media, then people will have clips of you out. It's like, hey, she's finally in America. I thought she was only playing the UK and Europe. Like, no, she's finally here. So then maybe next year or whatever, that you can jump onto another tour and actually do 30 dates or whatever it is.
Exactly. And it's been pretty, like, obviously, like before I spoke about how when we were on tour, that's kind of like when this festival date kind of came about. But we're on tour on the opposite side of the world as well. So, like, to see that people are seeing this in different countries and they're like, no, this would really work over here. And we feel like this show is going to be like a good show for people to watch. It's very exciting for us. We're a very high energy band. We work as hard as we can. We're never like at a standstill either. And I'm so glad that every member in the band is very on board to that, because a lot of bands will like go a little longer in between albums. And we released the album, then we went on tour, then we started writing the album, we went on tour, then we record the album, and now we're back on tour. So it's like, it's all like cyclical for us. And we're always trying to do something different though as well.
Yeah, no, it's, again, you're a hardworking band, and that's something that from a fan's point of view, I love to see that, instead of like, we work hard and then we're taking, and I understand, it's hard for bands out there, but still, like, how bad do you want this? And, if it were me, this, like, I would probably get really annoying to my band members, because it's like, it's full steam ahead. We got to keep on pushing and pushing and pushing, because there's so many other bands out there that if we don't push, they're going to push past us. So
exactly.
Like, you got within reason, of course, but you have to make sure that you're trying to grow, you're trying to build, you're trying to make sure things are methodical with what you do. And especially when things start to, like, let's say when the second album comes out and the first single, it's like just kind of goes through the roof. You got to make sure that you're ready. You got to get out there
exactly.
and do it.
And like, that's why we were like, talking to Frontiers. We were like, when do you guys want us to go out on tour? When do we want to release the album? And it's like, you have to have kind of this game plan, and the game plan might change and adapt. And that's what we saw. Like, at the start of this year, we were doing like UK dates, and we were doing a full run of UK dates. We had to hold that because they came to us and they said, look, we think this harem scarum support is going to be really beneficial to you guys. You guys have never been to Europe before, or mainland Europe before. Obviously, we've been to the UK handful of times, but like, this is going to be really good for you guys. Is this something that you guys are interested in? And we were like, yes, we were definitely interested in that. And that's not the same for every opportunity either. We got offered like a fair few things in the States previously and in Europe, and we've declined them just because, and politely declined, obviously, just because of, other opportunities. And we want to wait for something that, is it just makes sense. And this just made sense, you know, to go on this Harem Scarum tour and then do, you know, the UK run and Ireland dates. You know, it's very exciting as well for us to be able to, you know, do this long of a tour. This is our longest tour yet. I think it's something crazy like 25 dates. So it's the longest tour any of us have ever done. And we can't wait to build on the Bittersweet tour as well.
Yeah, you pointed out a really good thing about getting some offers that you politely declined, and that's really betting on yourself, betting on what else could be coming. And you know what, this is nice, but I think we're going to wait until this other thing we think is going to kind of get some momentum, and other opportunities are going to come down that we want to do. I just talked to a comedian last year, and she said, "Oh, Mark, I'll be back in the first quarter of 2025." And then, of course, the first quarter of 2025 came and went. I'm like, "What happened?" And she was like, "Oh, I got better offers, flat out, just from a monetary, standpoint. They're offering so much here in Seattle, and then the other cities are offering like 3 times as much. So I'm like, I'm going to the other places. So I'll come back to Seattle, but just not right now." And she knew exactly what she wanted and where she wanted her career to go. So I learned a lot from just being around her and her entrepreneurial kind of mindset, because it is the business, it is the music business.
And it's a lot of trust too. Like, I think that, you know, there was this really good opportunity that came up for us in the States. And that was kind of like, you know, something that we spoke about in December. And obviously then this, you know, we kind of like, in a way, and I've been learning a little bit more about that, but like we've manifested this date for so long, you know, like all of us have wanted to get something like this. And you know, we're like, you know what, like this is great and we're so lucky. And this was like my instant response to, you know, the bands that asked us to do this tour in the States that we declined. This is so fantastic, and thank you so much for thinking of us, because we're, you know, so keen to get out to the States. But we've got, you know, we've got something else that we're, you know, planning, and we've just got the European tour as well. And that was our priority this year, is that we wanted to be out on tour. We wanted to be in Europe and the UK and continue to build that before we go out. And then we got this really exciting thing. So it's a lot of belief, and, you know, you've got to have hope, and, you know, but it's not just hope. It's like, it's hard work. You know, we're constantly like looking at like, what can we do to better ourselves as a band, better ourselves on social media, which is such a pivotal part of like how things, you know, it's all like, a band is kind of like a machine, you know, and there's so many different parts that you have to think about that make sure and they're working, and adapt them, and, you know, update them to make sure that they're on par with what's going on in the world at the moment.
Absolutely. I mean, you talk about, so like if you take, I don't know, like Metallica or something, they employ so many people every single day, whether they're on tour or not, or in the studio or not. It's like, this is a business, this is a corporation at this point. And so you may not want to do it, you know, James or Kirk or Lars or whatever, but you got to look at it, and so do your people around you. I guarantee the people around them are already looking at that kind of thing about, what are we doing next? What are we doing next year? What are we doing 2 years from now? And because they got all these people to support, basically, and it doesn't matter what level you're on. If you've got, you know, 10 people on your entire team plus the band, you still have to look at it that way.
You do. And we've been so lucky. Like, we work with such a good team at Frontiers. Like, we've been, you know, really helped us, you know, they've really helped us as a band. And we've done, you know, a lot of the hard work behind the scenes as well. But, you know, being signed to a record label has been fantastic for us, because it's been a lot of learning. It's been, you know, meeting a lot of really good people. We're playing the Frontiers Fest in Milan in I think it's 2 weeks from now, and we're so excited, because, you know, a lot of these people that, you know, we'll see over emails and that have helped us so much in like in terms of touring, in terms of, you know, the outlay of albums, in terms of, you know, like things that we see online, like the album is sold out online, which just blows my mind. Like New Sensation was sold out. You know, but there's so many people working behind the scenes to make everything run the way it's run. So we're really excited to meet everyone in person for the first time. And, you know, I'm working on a really cool project, which is secondary obviously to the album, but a really cool project with the social media like coordinators there at the moment, and at Frontiers. And it's more of like a thing where people get to know me as well as a person, and speak about music and, you know, different things like that. So I'm really excited. There's been a lot of people that are making this machine work at Cassidy Paris.
Sure sounds like it, and that's something that, yeah, sounds. I mean, you're obviously very, very grateful for the people that you've been, you know, associated with, and like you said, you're getting a chance to finally meet some of these people in person when you're at the festival in a couple of weeks. You'll get to see some amazing bands on that label. So I was looking at the
You know, it's insane because, you know, like I said before, I grew up on Harum Scarum. Like my dad's favorite band is Harum Scarum. So like when the one of like the touring managers came to us and was like, "Hey, like there's opportunities come up," I looked at my dad and I was like, we're gonna have to take this tour, or like, I don't know, you're gonna have to like pack yourself, I don't know, just get in a suitcase and go on that tour, because yeah, but he was so chuffed, and like he was so wrapped for all of us to be on like such a cool slot, you know. And yeah, it's pretty crazy, like growing up listening to things and listening to bands and then playing on the same bill as them, or like in our case touring with Harum Scarum for like a couple of weeks is pretty insane. I know the boys, Alex and Tom, they grew up a lot on FM, and they're playing at Frontiers Fest, and Tom talks a lot about how he was very much like guided by like people in FM, you know, Steve, and they kind of, you know, have always kind of just seen them, and like gone to see them every single time they played in the UK. And now, you know, we're signed to the same record label as them, and we're playing the same festival as them. So it's going to be a pretty fun ride doing that for the next, you know, however long we can do it for.
Yeah, no, I can totally understand what you're saying when, you know, you're a fan of a band or an artist, and then in your case, you know, you get to play festivals or be on the tour with them and be on the same tour bus. In Harum Scarum's case, it's no different to me than when I get a chance to sit down and interview somebody that I grew up listening to, and they're sitting, you know, 2 feet from my face. It's kind of like,
totally.
It's so surreal but so cool at the same time. It's like, and I try not to fanboy out, but sometimes I can't help it. I just kind of like, I just got to tell you.
Exactly. And, you know, I felt that way with so many musicians, and like, I can't wait to meet the guys in Harum Scarum. And I know my dad's met them. He's played on the same bill as them previously with like a previous band he was in. And he was like, I just remember seeing a live show and I was like in shock because it was so good. And I said, I'm literally, after we get off that stage, I'm going to literally go straight back into the venue and just watch the show every single night. Like, I cannot wait to see them. And, you know, at heart, I'm a fan too. You know, it's pretty insane to be able to, you know, say that we're touring with Harum Scarum as well.
Yeah, I mean, you hit the nail on the head. Everyone has influences. Everyone's a fan of somebody. I think back to when Black Sabbath reunited with Ozzy back in like '99, and here in Seattle, before Sabbath came on, we were sitting in the stands and you could see down at the soundboard. And so this is when Pantera was special guest and somebody else was opening. But you saw, like, I remember Vinny and Dime walked back to the soundboard. You saw some of the guys from Soundgarden walk to the soundboard because they live here in Seattle. And it's like, they're just there because they finally get to see the original 4 guys, you know, on Sabbath play live. And it was so kind of a good reminder, like they're just fans like anybody else.
Exactly. And you know what, like especially like this scene of music that you know, it's very much, you know, a niche, you know. And I grew up on all this stuff. Like there was this really cool opportunity that happened to me last year, and I remember seeing the email. And I'm a huge Vixen fan, and I love Janet Gardner. Edge of a Broken Heart is one of, you know, like my favorite songs of all time, but it was also like the first song so I like ever put out. I remember sitting down to record it with my dad, and I was like, I don't know, like do we put this out on social media, or like do we wait? And my dad was really confident in me, and that was something that really helped me as well growing up in the industry, is that he had a lot of confidence and he really guided me. But going back to the story about Edge of a Broken Heart, we put it out and it got an insane like reaction. Like it was share, share, share. People were commenting like left, right, and center. And then last year, I received this email. We were doing a festival date here in Australia, and I remember getting an email from Frontiers, and they were like, Janet Gardner from Vixen has approached us. She says she loves New Sensation, your album. She wants to see if you want to get up on stage and sing Edge of a Broken Heart with her. And I just remember sitting there. I was like, what on earth? Like, you know, the singer from Vixen knows who I am. Like, what? And you know, Janet and Justin were so cool. I remember going to meet them, and I was like nervous because Janet Gardner is like a huge, you know, icon to me. She, you know, was very much a part of my childhood, and I loved listening to Vixen, and I watched like every documentary on them. And I said it to her. I was like, I promise I'm not your stalker. I just really like adore you and I love your music. And she was so sweet to me. And she was like, I love New Sensation. She goes, me and Justin listened to it. And I was like, what? Like you listen to my album? What the heck? Like it's pretty insane to get full circle moments like that. And yeah, the guys and I were just so chuffed to meet her and Justin and the whole band.
That's yeah, no, that's got to be awesome to be able to have somebody that you look up to reach out to you, and then also talk about how much they like your music, but then hey, come up on stage and sing the song that you did, you know, X amount of years ago as a cover tune.
Yeah, exactly. And I remember her introducing me, and she was like, this girl is gonna do like incredible things in rock music. And I was almost in tears. Like it was such a cool thing for her to have done for me, and also for like women and girls who want to do a similar thing. I just thought it was women supporting women, and you know, she was so cool to get down, you know, to have someone else sing, you know, such a pivotal song in her career as well with her. And it went down really well. People loved it. It was so much fun. And, you know, I owe a lot of like, you know, my style and my edge and stuff to singers like that.
Yeah, so I never met Janet, but I met oh my gosh, Jan and Cher back in the day when the first album came out. They were doing an in-store signing locally here, and here's the side story. So me being me, I mistakenly thought, well, there's not going to be anything that gets signed. Like I wanted a poster. I didn't want like my CD or my album signed. So I went driving around all over Seattle trying, and I finally found a poster at a place. And then I get there to the signing, and then they had a bunch of posters there that you could buy. So, it was the same promo poster for the album that I found. That took me like 2 hours. So I
goodness.
Yeah, I kind of learned my lesson. But yeah, because I remember I was definitely into the first album and the second album for sure too. Rev It Up.
Yeah.
And I don't think they really ever got their due. They had some level of success, of course, and that type of thing, but it seemed like there was so much more going on with that band that could have been capitalized on. And you know, it was kind of, you know, the late 80s, 87, 88 kind of a period of time, but still it's like there was a lot of talent in that band. And then they just kind of went different ways. I know there's still some version of it touring with, I think, with Roxy on the drums, but yeah, no, so they are one of those bands that I definitely listened to and influenced me as well. I mean, and so again, for you to be able to, you know, rub shoulders like that.
Yeah, exactly. You know, like I just remember like when I was a kid, like my dad would play things of like Jenna Gardner singing and, you know, Vixen on stage. And I wanted to be like them, you know, like I looked up to them so much. And yeah, there's things like that in the music industry that kind of just blow your mind a little bit, especially at my age, you know. I'm well aware that like I'm so like in my learning phase with music, and very much like in my entire life too. And that's something that my dad really like drilled into me. And my parents, my mum and my dad raised me on, is that we're learning, you're learning, everyone's still learning about their careers, about their life, you know, about relationships with people. Like, just make sure that you keep your head in the right place, and you make sure that you're a good person. And, you know, I really think that good people always, you know, they see some sort of, you know, it's fantastic to see good people and out there, and they always see some sort of success in some way.
Yeah, no, I agree. That's great. That's great parenting advice about. I think it gets easy, especially if you start getting any level of success or notoriety in whatever field you're in, that you can start to lose yourself. And especially for musicians, because you have basically the same people around you. Like when you're on tour, it's kind of like the same group of bubble of people. So you kind of you get protected in some ways, and as you get larger and bigger and all that, it gets even more protective because you really don't get outside of that circle. So it's easy to be like, "Oh, I'm an asshole, and I didn't even realize it until someone finally says it to you."
No, exactly. And you know, that's the thing that I'm like very conscious about as well, is that, you know, you always have to try and think of things from other people's perspectives as well. And in some ways as well, you've got to protect yourself. Like, you definitely, you know, there's been some instances in, you know, and very minimal ones as well, at this stage, which has been nice. But you know, there's been some instances where I thought someone was a really good person, was looking out for me, and they weren't. And you know, that's a hard thing to kind of come to terms with. You know, I remember being on tour and I was in a relationship, and people, like, you know, I found out that people were doing things, or you know, that I didn't like, or you know, it's hard to, you know, be out on tour and to have other things going on in your personal life. It's difficult. But it's better for me to be out there being on tour and, you know, singing my heart out every single night, and, you know, putting my energy into something good, when something is, you know, hard.
Yeah, when it goes back to your passion, I mean, yeah, you've got all these other things you're still trying to juggle, like a personal life and anything else that might be cropping up on the road even. But it's like that time when I'm on stage, that's what I'm doing this. That's what it's all about. And then once I get off the stage, when I can meet the fans that have come out to support me, that's the other piece of that I'm into. It kind of it helps right the ship, especially if things are kind of murky for a while. It's like, well, at least I have this. That's why I'm doing it. And if other people don't understand that or take advantage of that time or whatever, then that's really on them. And one thing I wanted to ask before we kind of start wrapping this up, I appreciate all the time you've given me. This is awesome.
That's okay. No worries at all. Thank you for having me.
When you guys play live with the dates that are coming up in April and beyond, are you doing any kind of cover tune in your set, or is it strictly originals?
We are. We've been doing, we kind of like try, especially because we're a rising band, you know, cover tunes have been, you know, kind of cool thing to, you know, put your own spin on. And obviously when you're playing to a crowd where no one really knows who you are sometimes, and that is the case for some festival dates, you know, and then there's some festival dates where the whole entire crowd knows who you are. So it really differs, but like we pick and choose different, you know, things. Like we very influenced by a lot of female fronted bands, obviously. So things like Vixen, things like, you know, Pat Benatar, Joan Jett. Like we do a Joan Jett cover, and I Hate Myself for Loving You is like one of my favorite songs of all time, and it's something that I love throwing into the set because it's something that I can put my own spin on, and I can also show my roots, and people really love they'll love that track. You know, it's so much fun, so much energy. And then, you know, we're also influenced by, and this is who I grew up on a lot as well, because obviously given my age, I was raised on, you know, Paramore. Paramore is a huge influence on me, and you know, Lizzie Hale, and you know, the Pretty Reckless, Taylor Momsen, all those ladies that were doing it, you know, and getting into the music industry. That's who I was like watching rise when I was younger, and when I was a kid. And you know, I love doing Misery Business as a cover, and that's a song that we throw into a set quite a bit as well. And we just did that one a couple of weeks ago at the show, and people like went off. It was insane. They loved it.
Well, that's awesome that you kind of pick and choose and tailor it to like the show or the city you're in, or like if it's a festival versus a headline date of like, well, I'm not sure how popular we are here, so let's have this here. If we need to pull it out, we will. And if we don't, then we don't. I'm also thinking like some of the bands you rattled off, that a lot of them have been bringing out The Warning on tour with the three gals from Mexico. So there's definitely this
we played a date with The Warning last year, Steelhouse Festival, and the girls were on the same bill, and it was so cool. I loved seeing them play.
They have a rabid fan base. That much I know. I've had a chance to interview them one time, which was a while ago, but every time that they come through the area, they're either supporting like a Hailstorm or somebody of that level, or when they're headlining, they're selling everything out. So they're just like, but
exactly.
To our point that we were talking about earlier, they tour their butts off. They're constantly on the road.
Exactly. And you know what? That is the secret to a lot of it. You know, good songs, I think, speak for themselves. You know, that's such an important thing. Obviously, that's really important, and you need to make sure that you connect with people. Is a massive thing too. And then, you know, touring is so important. And I think that, you know, that can get lost sometimes for people, is that, you know, playing your material live and speaking to people about you know, your material, and you know, whether that be in podcast form or interview form, or you know, you have something else going on, where, or social media is so like obviously vital as well. But touring is like, it's pure content. Touring, being out on tour, is just like content galore. And that's something that we've really learned. Like I said, we see a lot of success, and we see a lot of you know, of a difference from actively touring, like where we can.
Yeah, and you mentioned it a couple of times, that every time you've been on the road, something good's come from it that you weren't expecting. So it's yet another reason to keep getting out there, keep getting good things happening. And for me, just being a musician, and this isn't so much a controversy anymore, but I know it was for a while. When you guys are playing live, do you guys have tracks that you have during the show at any time, or you have some, or don't have any?
We've moved. Well, we have some. We've moved away from having some tracks as well. Like, it's something that, you know, there's bands like, I know The Warning use them pretty heavily. There are a lot of bands that do use them, and it's not something that I particularly love. But I think that, you know, sometimes where necessary, you know, we have sometimes we have keys on tracks, because purely it's a finance thing for us, that, you know, we need to get someone in to play keyboards, and then that's another huge cost. And getting a keyboardist in Australia is quite a difficult task. So that's something like, that's basically the extent of it for us at the moment. And I'm really happy about that, because, you know, a lot of people, like, I see bands in Australia and their tracks are dominating their entire live show. And I don't see that as playing live as much. And this is no hate to anyone that uses them, but you know, there's a lot of, you know, heavy tracks in some shows that I see in Australia, local bands, or, you know, headliners. And I think that where you can obviously avoid it, try to. But we're lucky because Tom, our guitarist, he is such a strong vocalist. So he is able to do such good BVs live. And my dad sings BVs as well. Alex, actually, our drummer, he does sing as well. He doesn't sing live, but, this is all stuff that's on the album, though. And will, obviously happen in the future too. But yeah, I think that everything has kind of come together, and I'm really lucky that I work with really talented musicians that can prove that you can do it live.
Well, that sounds good. And I'm like with you. If people are using tracks to just kind of accentuate what they do live, then that's okay. I understand you don't have a choir, you don't have an orchestra, or just the intro tape to a song. I understand that. If I listen to something and I hear like guitar parts that the guitar player isn't playing, that's when I'm kind of like,
I know it freaks me out too sometimes. But and that's, again, no hate to like any bands that do use them heavily or heavily rely on them. I know of a lot that use them in Australia, and I think that it's a little bit crazy to me as well sometimes, because I see some bits and I'm like, where's that guitar coming from? It must be like the tracks. And that blows my mind. And it's interesting as a musician going to see a live show and seeing what people actually use, because there are so many big acts that use them and rely on them so much. And having a little bit of tracks is that's fine. Like we have an intro track as well, which is like, because we need to walk on stage to something that takes everyone up there. But apart from that, it's something that we're really trying to move away from. And I'm really happy for that, because it shows, I think that's kind of a unique thing for us as a band, because there are so many bands that heavily rely on them these days.
Yeah, no, it sounds like you have kind of the right mentality. And again, I don't want to hate on people either that heavily rely on tracks. I was at a show though, when was that, 2 years ago? And it was like the special guest slot. And they actually had to stop their set because their laptop went down. And so I'm like, we're literally waiting around like, so what's going on? And he's trying to reboot it up and there's some other problem with it. So then they try to do a song without it. And it was like night and day. I mean, it was, wow.
Yeah.
Like, maybe you should just stop the set. Just stop the set here. Thank you, good night, and get off, because it was not good.
Yeah, exactly. And you'd be amazed at how many bands do like rely on, people that are listening to this, you'd be amazed at how many bands do so heavily rely on tracks. Like if the track goes out, you'll hear it. Like it's for a lot of bands, like I know that, like I said, it's a keys thing for us at the moment, and that's purely like a finance thing. And I am very grateful and lucky for that as well, because I've got singers in the band that can really hold their own in terms of BVs and their instruments, and that's a great thing. But you see so much of it today, and it's crazy, because like you said, it's night and day for a lot of bands. And there's been times where like we're like, oh yeah, like the keys track is not working, and it's like, oh well, just fuck off the keys track then. It doesn't really matter to actually have that for us. And if you can't hear the keys, obviously it elevates the song for us, but we'll have very minimal stuff going on.
Yeah, see, and that type of thing, again, for me being a musician, that's where I'm like okay with it, because yeah, it might make it better, but then if you take it out, then it's still good. That means there's musicians that are actually musicians up on the stage that has spent time woodshedding, spent time practicing, rehearsing, all the things that you're supposed to do. And even like I've seen some bands, they strip it down, not even acoustic electric, I mean just like campfire acoustic guitar and the singer, the rest of the band leaves, they do one song that way, and you'll tell right away if they got any talent, if there's nothing to hide behind.
Yeah, it's pretty insane, isn't it? Like I think that's something that you can really see that. And but it's something that you can really see through when you hear a band play live from the first song. You can see if what's dominating, and if the band are holding their own. But I think it's something that we kind of try to play on as well, is that, we're not using like, BVs and stuff on track. It's all Tom and my dad, and I think that's something. And people are like, oh, the BVs were so good, did you have them on track? And it's like, no, like we definitely did not. Like, if you can go back and you'll be able to hear, every little nitty gritty bit. And because so many bands are using it, I'm really lucky that I work with the bands that are very talented musicians.
Again, that's what I love. I love the fact that Tom and your dad are doing the background vocals. And I've seen so many bands, including one band that I really like, and there's only one person doing background vocals. And when he gets to the mic, it's like this big booming layered sound. I'm like, I know that's not you. I mean, you might be in there somewhere in that mix, but it's the rest of it's all this track that's going on. And I can listen to that at home. I don't need to hear this, at the concert that I drove an hour to get to.
Exactly. And you can listen to it on the record. And that's something like, even with the live show, like the energy aspect of things, it's like, I think one thing that I've never really understood as a musician is when there's not really a show to it and people don't really play on that. And that's something that we were all like, all four of us were very much like raised on, is that we perform to the max every single show, and we give people their money's worth in terms of like using the stage, using the audience, get people involved. I run around like a headless chook. Like, I'll be a sweaty mess after the show, and because people will know that we do a lot on stage. And I think that's something, again, that we try to play on, because there are so many bands that will not do that these days. And I think that's something that I was always just raised on, like, make sure that you're not giving people just the record. You need to give them a live show as well.
Yeah, I mean, I was raised on the same thing, and I don't play in a band, but when I used to play in a duo, it's kind of it's a different animal, and people need to approach it as such, that people have really made a commitment to come out and see you, like you mentioned before. So you want to respect that and put on the very best show that you can. You want to take some time to chat with people after the show if there's time to do it. And again, for me, that's just where you're planting seeds everywhere, and that's how things grow for your career. And bands that don't do it, I just kind of scratch my head. It's like, what are you thinking?
yeah, exactly. I agree.
But so to kind of wrap this up, Cassidy, and I don't know if you can actually say, since the new album is coming out this year, but do you have like it says you don't have a date yet, or you can't say anything in terms of like release date and all that?
I'm not allowed to say anything in terms of release dates, but we will have some new music coming soon. So we're beginning everything at the moment, and that's super exciting to say. And everything is on its way with the rollout. So we're so stoked to be on tour this month, next month, and the following month. And we can't wait to reveal what we've got coming in terms of future touring dates as well. So I hope everyone digs this new music as much as we've been into it as well.
Well, I can't wait to hear it once it's officially released, and then also seeing where this festival date is in America that's coming up this year. So exciting times ahead. Plus, I wish you all the success with the tour. It sounds like you don't need it because it's already successful anyway when you get over there.
Thank you so much.
But it's been a pleasure reconnecting with you again. And again, you're going to be busy this year, so maybe we'll see where things are at. We can connect once if there's downtime somewhere in your schedule.
Absolutely. I'll make time. Yeah. Thank you so much for having me. And I love Eclectic, arts. It's awesome to be able to come back on here.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Cassidy.
Thank you so much. See you later.
See you later. Bye-bye.